Let me ask you something. Have you ever been so caught up in your thoughts that you completely missed what was happening right in front of you? Maybe you were scrolling on your phone while your mom was talking, nodding along but not really listening. Or you were walking down the street, lost in worries about work, barely noticing the sky, the wind, or even the people passing by. Sounds familiar? We live in a world where we see everything, but we rarely truly see. Our eyes are open, but our minds are somewhere else. And that's exactly where suffering begins. Buddhism teaches us that our suffering isn't caused by what happens around us, but by how we perceive and react to it. We see the world through the lens of our expectations, fears, and desires, and that distorts reality. Today, let's explore how we can break free from this illusion, see the world clearly, and live with true presence, just as the Buddha taught. Are you really seeing the world as it is? All right, let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at someone and immediately assumed you knew their story? Maybe you saw a man in a suit and thought, "Oh, he must be successful." Or you noticed a woman sitting alone in a coffee shop, staring out the window, and thought, "She must be sad." But let's pause for a second. How do you know? You don't. The man in the suit might be drowning in debt, just fired from his job and terrified of losing his home. The woman in the coffee shop? Maybe she's not sad at all. Maybe she's just enjoying the silence, reflecting on how beautiful life is. Yet, our minds fill in the blanks based on what we already believe, based on our past experiences, our emotions, and, let's be honest, our prejudices. We think we see reality, but we're really just seeing our own mental projection of it. And that's why we suffer. Buddhism has a word for this: Tri Gyak Sai Lam, wrong perception. It means that what we believe to be true isn't necessarily the truth. It's like looking at the world through foggy glasses. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning and you're already in a bad mood. Maybe you didn't sleep well. Maybe you had an argument the night before. Then, on your way to work, someone cuts you off in traffic. Immediately, your mind reacts. What a terrible driver. People are so selfish. But wait, what if that person is rushing to the hospital because their child is sick? What if they just lost their job and were too distracted to notice you? See, the problem isn't just that we misinterpret reality. It's that we believe our misinterpretation is the truth. We don't take a moment to pause and ask, is this really true? Or is this just my perception? And because we never question our perceptions, we suffer over things that aren't even real. Let me tell you an old Buddhist story that perfectly explains this. One night, a man was walking home through a dark forest. As he took a step forward, he suddenly froze in fear. There was a snake right in front of him, coiled and ready to strike. His heart pounded. He broke out in a cold sweat. He slowly backed away, careful not to provoke the snake. Then, just as he was about to turn and run, a beam of moonlight shone through the trees. And guess what? It wasn't a snake. It was just a rope lying on the ground. Now, let's think about this for a second. Was there ever really a snake? Number, did his fear feel real? Absolutely. Did his body react as if there was real danger? 100%. This is what happens to all of us every single day. We mistake ropes in our lives for snakes. Someone doesn't text us back. We assume they're ignoring us. Our boss calls us into their office. We assume we're in trouble. A friend acts differently. We assume they don't like us anymore. But 99% of the time, there is no snake. It's just a rope. We're suffering because of our own wrong perception. Science agrees with Buddhism. Now, here's something fascinating. Modern neuroscience actually agrees with what the Buddha taught thousands of years ago. Scientists have discovered that our brains don't see reality as it is. They see a version of reality that is shaped by past experiences. Let me explain. Imagine you see a stranger walking towards you on the street. Within a fraction of a second, your brain already decides if that person looks friendly or dangerous. How? Your brain compares them to everyone you've ever met before. If they look like someone who once treated you badly, your brain immediately triggers a sense of discomfort, even if this new person is completely harmless. Your brain is guessing reality based on the past. In other words, we're not really seeing the present moment. We're seeing our own history, projected onto the present. That's why two people can look at the same event and see completely different things. Imagine a rainy day. A farmer sees the rain and thinks, "Wonderful. My crops will grow." A traveler sees the rain and thinks, "Oh no, my trip is ruined." A child sees the rain and thinks, "Yay, I get to jump in puddles." Same rain, different perceptions, different emotions. So the next time something upsets you, ask yourself, am I really seeing this clearly? Or am I just seeing a reflection of my past? How this affects our relationships. All right, let's bring this even closer to home. Let's talk about relationships. Have you ever had a fight with someone because you assumed they meant something they never actually said? You know how it goes. Your partner looks at their phone during dinner and you think, they don't care about me. Your friend cancels plans and you think, maybe they don't like me anymore. Your boss gives you a weird look and you think, am I getting fired? But how often are these assumptions actually true? Most of the time, it's just our own insecurities talking. What if your partner was just checking an important work email? What if your friend canceled because they were exhausted, not because they didn't want to see you? What if your boss was just thinking about something completely unrelated to you? This is why relationships suffer. We don't see people as they are. We see them through the lens of our own fears and past wounds. So, what's the solution? Pausing before reacting. Next time you feel hurt, stop and ask yourself, is this really true? Or is this just my perception? All right, so if we know our perceptions are unreliable, how do we start seeing clearly? The Buddha taught 3 simple steps. Pause. Before reacting, take a deep breath. Observe. Ask yourself, what am I really seeing without my emotions clouding it? Let go. If you realize your perception might be wrong, let it go. It sounds simple, but this alone can transform your life. Think about it. What if instead of getting angry, you just took a breath? What if instead of assuming the worst, you asked for clarification? What if instead of believing every negative thought, you questioned it? This is the difference between suffering and freedom. Because when you stop believing every thought in your head, you stop being controlled by them. So, let's sum this up. Our minds don't see reality. They see a distorted version of it. We suffer because we mistake ropes for snakes. Most of our pain comes not from reality, but from our own wrong perception. Mindfulness helps us see clearly, pause, and respond wisely. Now, ask yourself, what am I misunderstanding in my life right now? What if the thing causing me pain isn't even real? Take a deep breath, open your eyes, and see life as it truly is. All right, let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly paid attention to what was happening around you? I'm not talking about just looking at things. I mean really seeing them, without distractions, without assumptions. without your mind running ahead of reality. Most of us go through life on autopilot. We eat while scrolling on our phones, barely tasting the food. We talk to people, but our minds are busy thinking about what we'll say next. We walk outside, but we don't notice the sky, the trees, the air on our skin. And then one day, something wakes us up. A tragedy, a loss, or just a quiet moment when we realize, I've been missing life. That's where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is like a switch. Once you turn it on, you start seeing life as it really is, not just as a blur of habits and distractions. And trust me, once you experience true presence, you'll never want to go back. Let me tell you a story. There was once a young student who traveled far to meet a Zen master. "Master," he said, "I have read many books, I have studied deeply, but I still do not understand. Please teach me the way to enlightenment." The master smiled and said, "First, let's have some tea." He poured tea into the student's cup, but he didn't stop. He kept pouring even when the tea overflowed, spilling everywhere. The student panicked. "Master, the cup is full. It can't hold any more." The master stopped pouring and looked at him. "Exactly," he said. "Your mind is like this cup, already full of knowledge, thoughts, and worries. How can I teach you anything if your cup is already full?" Then he added, "Before you can learn, you must first empty your cup." This is mindfulness. It's about emptying your cup, clearing away the noise in your mind so you can truly experience life as it is. What is mindfulness, really? So, what exactly is mindfulness? In Buddhism, it's called Shan Nyem, a state of being fully present in the moment without judgment. It's not about stopping your thoughts or forcing yourself to concentrate. It's about noticing. When you're drinking tea, just drink the tea. When you're walking, just walk. When you're listening to someone, just listen. It sounds simple, but when was the last time you actually did that? Most of the time, we're doing one thing while thinking about something else. We eat while thinking about work. We shower while replaying a past argument. We sit in a meeting while planning our weekend. And then we wonder why life feels so rushed, so blurry, so unsatisfying. Mindfulness is the key to slowing down, to actually experiencing your own life instead of just rushing through it. Why we're so distracted, and how it hurts us. Now, you might be thinking, "But I can multitask. I can think about my problems and still get things done." That's what we tell ourselves. But science says otherwise. Studies show that when we multitask, we're not actually doing two things at once. We're just rapidly switching between them. And every time we switch, our brains have to reset, which makes us less focused, more stressed, more forgetful. It's like trying to load a web page with 50 tabs open. Your computer slows down, and so does your mind. And the worst part? We miss the small moments, the ones that make life meaningful. The warmth of sunlight on your face, the smile of a loved one, the feeling of being alive, right here, right now. When we rush through life, we miss life itself. How to start practicing mindfulness, right now. All right. Let's make this practical. You don't have to go meditate in a cave for 10 years to practice mindfulness. You can start right now. Here's how. 1. The 5-second pause. Next time you feel overwhelmed, just stop. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, where is my mind right now? Is it in the past, replaying old memories? Is it in the future, worrying about things that haven't happened yet? Then, gently bring it back to the present. 2. Mindful eating. For your next meal, try this. Put down your phone. Take a bite. Chew slowly. Notice the texture, the flavors, the temperature. Just eat. You'll be amazed at how much more satisfying food becomes when you actually pay attention to it. 3. The one-task rule. Pick one daily activity. Drinking coffee, brushing your teeth, walking to your car, and do it mindfully. That means no rushing, no distractions, just being present. How mindfulness can change your life now, you might be wondering, okay, but what's the big deal? Why does this matter? Here's why. Mindfulness rewires your brain. When you practice mindfulness, you literally reduce stress, increase focus, strengthen emotional intelligence. But most importantly, you stop missing your own life. Think about it. How many moments have you missed because your mind was somewhere else? How many conversations have you half listened to because you were distracted? How many beautiful days have you ignored because you were lost in thought? Mindfulness brings you back. It's like putting on glasses after years of blurry vision. Suddenly, life becomes clear. A final story, the monk and the river. Let me leave you with one last story. A young monk once asked his teacher, "Master, I want peace. I want to be present, but my mind keeps running away. What should I do?" The teacher smiled and took the monk to a river. "Look at the water," he said. The river was muddy and restless. "This is your mind," the master said, "always moving, always cloudy with thoughts." Then he pointed to a rock. "Sit and watch." So the young monk sat, and after a while the river began to settle. The dirt sank to the bottom. The water became clear. "See," the master said, "when you stop stirring the water, it becomes clear on its own. The same goes for your mind. Just be still and clarity will come." Final thoughts. Will you start seeing clearly? So, let me ask you, when was the last time you truly saw life? How often do you live on autopilot? Are you ready to slow down and actually experience your own life? Because here's the truth. Life isn't happening tomorrow. Life isn't happening in the past. Life is happening right now. But the question is, are you here for it? Why do we hold on so tightly? Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to hold on to something so tightly, whether it's a relationship, a job, a dream, or even just an idea of how things should be, only to watch it slip right through your fingers? Maybe it was a person you loved, and you thought, if I just try harder, they'll stay. Maybe it was a goal, and you told yourself, if I don't reach this, I'll never be happy. Or maybe it was just a version of yourself, the you who was younger, healthier, more confident, and you can't accept the fact that things have changed. Why do we cling? Because deep down, we believe that if we just hold on tight enough, we can stop things from changing. But here's the truth. Everything changes, and the more we resist, the more we suffer. In Buddhism, one of the biggest sources of suffering is upadana, which means clinging or grasping. We grasp at people. We grasp at emotions. We grasp at control. But what happens when you hold on to something too tightly? Think about holding sand in your hand. If you gently cup it, it stays. But if you clench your fist, it slips away even faster. That's how life works. Everything in this world is like flowing water. It's meant to move, to change, to evolve. And the more we try to freeze it, the more we suffer. There's a story about how hunters in India used to catch monkeys. They would take a hollowed-out coconut, drill a small hole in it, and put a handful of rice inside. Then they'd tie the coconut to a tree. Now, the hole was just big enough for a monkey to slip its hand inside. But once it grabbed the rice and made a fist, its hand was too big to pull out. The monkey would scream, struggle, pull, and panic. But it would never let go of the rice. And because it refused to let go, it got trapped. Now, think about your own life. What are you holding on to that's keeping you trapped? A relationship that's already over? A past mistake you can't forgive yourself for? An old version of yourself that no longer exists? If you're suffering, ask yourself, am I like the monkey? Am I refusing to let go? Because freedom isn't about escaping. It's about releasing. The illusion of control. Now, let's talk about something that might make you a little uncomfortable. You are not in control. I know. It feels like we should be. We make plans, set goals, work hard, and expect things to turn out a certain way. But life doesn't care about our expectations. You can do everything right and still lose people. You can work as hard as possible and still fail. You can love someone with all your heart, and they can still leave. Because control is an illusion. The sooner we accept this, the sooner we can let go of the anxiety, the frustration, the fear. Instead of trying to control the ocean, we learn how to surf the waves. A parable from the Buddha. The two arrows. Imagine this. You're walking through a forest, and suddenly, an arrow hits you. It hurts, but then, instead of getting help, you shoot yourself with a second arrow by thinking, why did this happen to me? This is unfair. I'll never recover from this. That second arrow, the one you shoot yourself with, that's your attachment to suffering. The first arrow, that's life. Pain, loss, change, they happen to everyone. But the second arrow, that's self-inflicted. That's what we do when we refuse to accept reality. So, the next time something painful happens, ask yourself, am I shooting myself with a second arrow? Because pain is inevitable, but suffering, that's optional. How do we let go without feeling lost? Now, I know what you might be thinking. But if I let go, won't I lose what I love? Won't I stop caring? Letting go doesn't mean detaching from life. It means detaching from your need for things to be a certain way. Think of a tree. When the seasons change, it doesn't fight to keep its leaves. It lets them go because it knows new ones will grow. That's real strength. Letting go doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you stop controlling. It means you allow life to unfold as it is, rather than trying to force it into the shape you want. Practical ways to start letting go. All right, so how do we actually practice this? Here are 3 simple ways. 1. Practice soft hands. Have you ever noticed how we tighten up when we're anxious? We clench our fists, we hold our breath, we grip everything harder. Next time you feel stressed, literally open your hands. Relax your grip. Let go physically, and your mind will follow. 2. The 5-year question. Ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? Most of the things we stress over are tiny in the grand scheme of things. If it won't matter in 5 years, let it go today. 3. Write a letting go letter. Write down everything you're struggling to release. Then, either tear it up, burn it, or just close the notebook. This is a powerful way to symbolically free yourself. A final story. The man who carried a boulder. There was once a man carrying a heavy boulder on his back. As he walked, people asked him, "Why don't you put it down?" He shook his head and said, "I can't. This boulder is my past. It's my pain. It's my identity." Years passed, and the man grew tired. One day, he met a wise teacher who said, "You are not the boulder. You are the person carrying it, and you can put it down any time you choose." For the first time, the man realized something. The boulder was never holding him down. He was the one holding on to it. Final thoughts. What are you ready to release? So, let's take a deep breath. And let me ask you, what are you holding on to that no longer serves you? What old wounds, old fears, old expectations are keeping you stuck? Are you ready to put the boulder down? Because here's the truth. You don't need to carry it anymore. You are not the things you cling to. You are not your past. You are not your fears. You are something much lighter, much freer, much greater. So take a deep breath and let go. All right, let me ask you something. If I asked you, who are you? What would you say? Would you tell me your name, your job, your nationality? Would you describe your personality? I'm a kind person. I'm an introvert. I like coffee. But let's dig deeper. What if you lost your job? Would you still be you? What if you moved to another country? Would you still be you? What if you changed your mind about something you believed in for years? See, we walk around thinking we have a fixed identity, but here's the truth. You are not one thing. You are always changing. And yet, we cling to this idea of a permanent self. Buddhism teaches that this is one of the biggest illusions we live with. And if we can understand it, if we can let go of this false idea of self, we can free ourselves from so much suffering. So today, let's break this illusion together. The self is an illusion, the Buddhist view. All right, let's talk about one of the most mind-blowing teachings in Buddhism, anatta, which means no fixed self. Now I know what you're thinking. Of course I exist. I'm right here. But let's look closer. Buddhism teaches that there is no single, permanent you. You are not one fixed person. You are a constantly changing process. Think about it. The you who was a child, are they still here? The you who cried over a breakup 5 years ago, does that version of you still exist? The you who was stressed about an exam in school, where are they now? See, we don't have a self. We are continuously becoming. The ship of Theseus. Are you the same person? There's an old philosophical question called the ship of Theseus. Imagine a ship made of wooden planks. Over the years, one plank breaks, so we replace it. Then another, then another. Eventually, every plank has been replaced. Now, here's the question. Is it still the same ship, or is it a new one? Now, let's apply that to you. Your body completely regenerates every 7 to 10 years. Your thoughts, beliefs, and emotions are constantly shifting. Even your memories aren't perfectly reliable. So, who are you? Are you the child you once were? The teenager? The adult? Or are you something that is constantly changing, moment to moment? Why? This illusion causes suffering. Now you might be thinking, okay, cool, so I'm always changing. Why does this matter? It matters because clinging to a fixed identity makes us suffer. Here's how. 1. We fear change. We resist change because we think it means losing ourselves. I used to be confident. Now I feel lost. I used to be young. Now I feel old. But if we understand that change is natural, we stop fighting it. We flow with life instead of resisting it. 2. We get stuck in labels. We define ourselves by labels. I'm a successful person. What happens when you fail? I'm a good person. What happens when you make a mistake? I'm a strong person. What happens when you feel weak? When we attach to these identities, we suffer when life challenges them. 3. We struggle with letting go. We hold on to old versions of ourselves. I used to be in love. I don't want to move on. I used to be respected. Now I feel invisible. But the truth is, every version of you was temporary. The story of the river. There was once a young monk who came to his teacher and said, "Master, I feel lost. I don't know who I am anymore." The teacher took him to a river. "Look at the water," he said. "Is it the same water as yesterday?" The young monk shook his head. "No, the water is always flowing." The teacher smiled. "Exactly, and so are you. You are not a solid, unchanging rock. You are a flowing river. The moment you try to freeze the river, you suffer. But if you accept that you are always flowing, always changing, you become free." So, what's the alternative? If you are not a fixed self, then who are you? Buddhism teaches that instead of seeing ourselves as one solid thing, we should see ourselves as a collection of changing parts. In Buddhist philosophy, this is called the five aggregates, Ngu Uan. One body, your physical form, always changing. Two sensations, your feelings, always changing. Three perceptions, how you see the world, always changing. Four mental formations, your thoughts and habits, always changing. Five, consciousness, your awareness, always flowing. So instead of saying, "I am this," we say, "I am experiencing this right now." Instead of saying, "I am sad," we say, "Sadness is present in me right now." Instead of saying, "I am a failure," we say, "Failure is an experience passing through me." See the difference? Instead of clinging to an identity, we observe what's happening in the moment. And when we stop clinging, we stop suffering. How to apply this in your life? All right, so how do we use this wisdom in real life? Here are 3 simple ways. 1. Stop saying, "This is just who I am." Whenever you say, "I'm just like this," pause, because that's not true. You are not an angry person. You are someone experiencing anger in this moment. You are not a failure. You are someone who had a setback. You are not broken. You are in the process of healing. This shift in language frees you from your old identity. 2. Embrace change as growth. Next time you feel lost, remember, you are not lost. You are transforming. Just like a river, you are meant to change. So instead of clinging to the past, flow with the present. Third practice, who am I? Meditation. Sit quietly and ask yourself, who am I without my name? Who am I without my job? Who am I without my thoughts? Don't try to answer, just observe. What's left is pure awareness, the part of you that never changes. A final story. The man who found himself. There was once a man who traveled the world looking for himself. He tried different jobs, different cities, different relationships, hoping to find the real him. One day, exhausted, he sat by a river, and as he watched the water flow, he finally understood. I don't need to find myself. I need to let myself be. Because who we are is not something we find. It's something we allow to unfold. So, let me ask you, are you ready to stop searching and start flowing? So, what have we learned? You are not a fixed identity. You are always changing. Clinging to a false self causes suffering. Letting go of labels brings freedom. So, take a deep breath and flow. Because you, my friend, are free. Are you ready to see clearly? All right, let's take a deep breath together, because we've just traveled through some of the deepest truths that Buddhism offers. We've explored how. 1. Our perception is often an illusion. We don't see reality as it is. We see it through the fog of our emotions, past experiences, and expectations. 2. Mindfulness can clear that fog. When we learn to be present, we stop reacting blindly and start seeing life as it truly is. 3. Attachment keeps us trapped. We hold on to people, emotions, and even identities that no longer serve us, creating our own suffering. 4. The self is not fixed. You are not one solid thing. You are a flowing, ever-changing experience. And when you stop clinging to a rigid identity, you find true freedom. Now, let me ask you, what does this mean for your life? Are you ready to see beyond the illusions? Are you ready to let go of the things that are holding you back? Are you ready to stop searching for yourself and start being yourself? Because that's the real path to peace. The moment that could change everything. There's a moment that happens in every spiritual journey. It's not a grand, dramatic event. It doesn't come with flashing lights or a sudden voice from the heavens. It happens in silence, in a quiet moment when you suddenly realize, I don't need to keep chasing happiness. I don't need to keep proving myself. I don't need to keep fighting reality. I just need to be here. Maybe it happens while you're drinking tea. Maybe it happens while watching the sunset. Maybe it happens in the middle of a difficult moment, when you stop struggling and simply allow. And in that moment, you are free. The story of the empty boat. Let me leave you with one final story. There was once a man rowing his boat across a river on a foggy morning. As he paddled, he suddenly saw another boat coming straight toward him. He shouted, "Watch out! Move your boat!" But the boat kept coming. Frustrated, he screamed, "Are you blind? Get out of the way!" The boat crashed into his. Furious, the man was ready to curse and fight, until he looked closer and saw that the boat was empty. There was no one inside. It had simply drifted with the current. And suddenly, his anger disappeared. Because who was there to be mad at? Life is an empty boat. The things that upset us, the people who annoy us, the situations that frustrate us, they are often just empty boats drifting in the currents of life. We think they are attacking us personally, but in reality, they are just moving according to their own causes and conditions. And when we see this truth, we let go. We stop fighting life. We stop taking everything personally. We learn to flow. How to take this wisdom into your life. So, how do you actually apply everything we've talked about? Here are 3 simple ways to start living with more clarity, peace, and freedom. 1. Question your perception. The next time something upsets you, pause and ask, am I really seeing this clearly? Or am I just reacting based on my past? Because most of the time, we're not upset at reality. We're upset at our interpretation of reality. 2. Practice letting go every day. Try this. If someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of getting angry, just breathe and let it go. If you feel the need to prove yourself, remind yourself, I don't have to be anyone but myself. If an old memory haunts you, whisper to yourself, that version of me no longer exists. I release it. Letting go isn't something you do once. It's something you practice every single day. 3. Live like a river, not a rock. Instead of resisting change, flow with it. If life moves you in a new direction, trust it. If people come and go, let them. If your identity shifts, embrace it. Because the happiest people don't cling to the shore. They flow with the river of life. Final reflection. What are you ready to let go of? So, let me ask you one last question. What are you holding on to that is keeping you from being free? A past mistake? A grudge? The need to be perfect? The fear of change? Whatever it is, take a deep breath and let it go. Because the truth is, you don't need to carry it anymore. You are not your past. You are not your fears. You are not your thoughts. You are something much greater. Something flowing, evolving, becoming. So step forward, not as the person you were yesterday, not as the person you think you need to be, but as who you are right now in this moment. Because this moment, this breath, this life, this experience is all you ever truly have. And when you embrace it fully, you are finally free. Why? This expanded conclusion works strong emotional impact, encourages deep reflection and personal transformation, practical wisdom, gives real ways to apply Buddhist teachings in everyday life, powerful storytelling. The empty boat creates a memorable, life-changing metaphor. Call to action ends with a direct invitation for the audience to change their mindset and embrace life. This conclusion doesn't just summarize, it inspires and transforms. Let me know if you'd like any refinements. Blast off.